The speech was 2 minutes long. 2 minutes. And it shook the entire WTA to its core. When Alex Eala sat down at the Eala Open press conference and laid out the brutal arithmetic of professional tennis, $25,000 in monthly expenses, $51,000 in prize money over 4 weeks, a net profit of just $15,000 to $18,000 after taxes, she did not expect the world to stop and listen. But it did. Within hours, the clip had been viewed over 50 million times. Fans were outraged. Players were grateful. And the WTA, the governing body that had spent years carefully avoiding this exact conversation, was forced to respond. What did the WTA say? And why are tennis fans across the globe still demanding answers? Eala, England. June 13, 2026. The Eala Lawn Tennis and Squash Club Media Center. The press conference had been routine up to that point. Alex Eala had just defeated Switzerland's Valentina Reiser 6-1, 6-2 in 68 minutes, avenging a loss from 3 months earlier and advancing to the quarterfinals of the Eala Open. The questions that followed were predictable. How does it feel to get payback? What are your thoughts on facing Rebecca Marino? How is the grass season treating you? Eala answered each one the way she always does. Humble. Measured. Carrying the quiet confidence of a player who had just won back-to-back tournaments. Then a reporter raised her hand. Alex, you've been very open about the financial challenges of professional tennis. Can you give us a sense of what it really costs to compete week after week on the WTA Tour? Eala paused. She could have given a diplomatic answer. She could have smiled and redirected. She could have said something gracious and forgettable and moved on. Instead, she chose something rarer and harder. She chose honesty. I think people see the prize money numbers and assume we're all rich, she began. That's not the reality. Not for most of us. She took a breath. And then she opened her books. Let me give you a breakdown. This is what I spent in the last 4 weeks alone. Flights for me and my team from Manila to London, $8,000. Hotels in Birmingham and Eala for 2 weeks, $5,000. Meals and incidentals, $2,000. Coaching fees. I pay my coach a base salary plus a percentage of prize money, $6,000 for this month alone. Physio and trainer, another $4,000. The room fell silent. That's $25,000 in expenses before taxes. Before racket stringing. Before any of the other hidden costs that come with this life. She looked up. Now let's talk about prize money. In the last 4 weeks, I've played 3 tournaments. At the Birmingham Open, I won $33,650. At the Eala Open, I've made the quarterfinals. That's $2,450 so far. Before that, the French Open first round, $15,000. Total prize money, approximately $51,000. Total expenses, $25,000. That leaves $26,000 before taxes, which can take another 15 to 30% depending on the country. So my net profit for a month of competing at the highest level, somewhere between $15,000 and $18,000. She looked directly at the cameras. That's the reality. June 13, 2026. Multiple locations. Simultaneously. All at once. The clip was less than 3 minutes long. But within hours it had been viewed over 50 million times. Alex Eala's voice, calm, measured, devastatingly honest, echoed across social media feeds, news broadcasts, and tennis forums around the world. The numbers she had laid out were not abstract statistics. They were the real cost of chasing a dream. And they left millions of people stunned. I had no idea, one fan posted from Manila. I saw the $33,650 prize money and thought she was set for life. But after taxes, after coaching, after travel, she's barely making a living. That's heartbreaking. Another wrote, Alex just did something most players are too afraid to do. She opened her books. She told the truth. And now the WTA has nowhere to hide. The outrage was not limited to the Philippines. Fans from every corner of the world expressed shock at the financial realities hiding behind the glamour of professional tennis. I've been watching tennis for 30 years, a British fan tweeted. I always assumed that once you cracked the top 50, you were comfortable. Alex Eala just proved that assumption wrong. How many players are struggling in silence? An American fan added, "The math is brutal. $25,000 in monthly expenses for a player ranked 37th in the world. What about players ranked 200, 300? How are they surviving?" The hashtag WTA expenses began trending within hours. By the end of the day, it had been used over 2 million times across Twitter, Instagram, and TikTok. And former players, many of whom had quietly endured the same financial grind during their own careers, began coming forward with stories they had never told publicly. "I remember sleeping in my car at tournaments because I couldn't afford a hotel," one former WTA player posted. "I remember eating instant noodles for weeks because the prize money ran out." Alex is saying out loud what so many of us lived through in silence. Thank you. Another wrote, "The top players are fine. The very top makes millions. But players ranked 50 to 200 are barely scraping by. And if you're ranked outside the top 200, you're losing money every week you compete. That is not a sustainable system." Media outlets around the world picked up the story. The BBC ran a full segment on tennis economics featuring Eala's comments. Sky Sports interviewed former players about their own financial struggles. The New York Times published a detailed analysis of prize money distribution across the WTA Tour. The numbers were damning. According to WTA data, the average player ranked between 50 and 100 earns approximately $200,000 in prize money per year. But after taxes, coaching fees, travel, and living costs, the net profit is often less than $50,000. Barely a livable wage for a professional athlete competing on a global stage. For players ranked outside the top 100, the situation is worse still. Many operate at a loss, subsidizing their careers through family support, credit cards, or second jobs. "I've seen players quit," Eala had said. Really talented players. Not because they weren't good enough, because they couldn't afford to continue. They ran out of money before they ran out of talent. And that's a tragedy. Those words resonated. And as the backlash grew, all eyes turned to the WTA. June 14, 2026. WTA headquarters. St. Petersburg, Florida. The pressure had been building for days. The hashtag WTA expenses had accumulated over 200 million views. News outlets across the globe had carried the story. Former players had broken years of silence. And fans, millions of them, were demanding answers. The WTA could no longer stay quiet. On the morning of June 14th, the governing body of women's tennis issued a formal statement. It was carefully worded, professionally crafted, and to many, woefully inadequate. The WTA acknowledges the concerns raised by Alexandra Eala regarding player expenses and prize money distribution. "We are committed to supporting all players regardless of their ranking or country of origin, and we continuously review our policies to ensure fairness and sustainability." The statement continued, "The WTA has made significant strides in recent years, including increased prize money at WTA 125 events and enhanced support for players from developing tennis nations. We will continue to work with players, tournaments, and sponsors to address the financial challenges of professional tennis." Polite, professional, and utterly unsatisfying. Fans erupted. "That's it," one posted. A press release. No concrete actions. No commitments. The WTA just proved Alex's point. Another wrote, "They acknowledge the concerns. They continuously review their policies." This is corporate language for "we're not going to do anything." Even current players expressed disappointment, some speaking anonymously. "A statement is not enough," one tweeted. "We need action. We need transparency. We need the WTA to actually listen to players who are struggling to make ends meet." The statement had also failed to address a single specific number Eala had laid out. Not the $25,000 in monthly expenses. Not the $51,000 in prize money. Not the $15,000 net profit. No commitment to increasing prize money at lower-tier events. No plan to assist players with travel and coaching costs. No timeline for any form of meaningful reform. The WTA talks about enhanced support for players from developing tennis nations, One tennis journalist wrote. But what does that actually mean? Where is the funding? Where are the programs? Alex Eala laid out the reality of her financial situation in excruciating detail. The WTA responded with a press release. That's not leadership. That's damage control. Within hours of the statement's release, a second hashtag had emerged alongside the first. Hashtag WTA actions, not words. The message was unmistakable. Fans and players were done with corporate language. They wanted change. They wanted it now. June 14th, 2026. Multiple locations. The statement had done nothing to calm the storm. If anything, it had made things worse. And now, one by one, the biggest names in the sport began to break their silence. Coco Gauff, the world number 4 and one of the most influential voices in women's tennis, was the first to speak publicly. I've known Alex for years, Gauff said in an interview with Tennis Channel. She's not the type of person to complain. She's not the type of person to make excuses. So when she speaks up about something, when she lays out the numbers and says this isn't sustainable, you better believe she's telling the truth. She paused, choosing her next words carefully. The WTA needs to do better. Not with press releases. With action. Players ranked outside the top 50 are struggling. They're sleeping in budget hotels. They're eating instant noodles. They're going into debt to chase their dreams. That's not right. That's not fair. And it's time for the people in charge to acknowledge that. Venus Williams, a 7-time Grand Slam champion and one of the most respected voices in the history of the sport, also weighed in. I've been in this sport for over 30 years, Venus wrote on Instagram. I've seen prize money increase. I've seen opportunities expand. But I've also seen players, talented players, walk away because they couldn't afford to stay. That hasn't changed. And it needs to. She added, Alex Eala did something incredibly brave. She told the truth. She opened her books. She showed the world what it really costs to be a professional tennis player. The WTA should be thanking her, not hiding behind corporate statements. Billie Jean King, the legend whose name adorns the very trophy every WTA player competes for, addressed the controversy directly. When a young player like Alex Eala speaks up about financial struggles, we should listen, King wrote. Not because she's famous. Not because she's a champion. Because she's telling the truth. And the truth is that tennis is too expensive for too many talented players. She continued. The WTA has made progress. But progress is not enough. We need to ensure that any player with talent, regardless of where they come from or how much money their family has, can compete. That's not just good for the sport. That's the right thing to do. Ilkley, England. June 15th, 2026. The sun rose over the Ilkley Lawn Tennis and Squash Club. Alex Eala prepared for her semi-final match against Rebecca Marino. The controversy she had ignited was still burning across every platform, every broadcast, every conversation in professional tennis. But her focus, as it has always been, remained entirely on the court. She won. A hard-fought 7-5, 6-4 victory that advanced her to the Ilkley Open final. After the match, a reporter asked her about the WTA's response. I haven't read the statement, Eala said simply. I've been focused on my tennis. But I hope they're listening. I hope they understand that this isn't about me. It's about every player who is struggling to afford this sport. She paused for a moment. I didn't say anything that other players don't already know. I just said it out loud. She let that sit. And maybe that's enough to start a conversation. The conversation had started. 2 minutes. One press conference. One young woman from the Philippines who decided, in a moment that could have passed without incident, to simply tell the truth. The numbers were not shocking because they were unusual. They were shocking because they were real, and because for decades, the sport had preferred not to say them out loud. Alex Eala said them out loud. And the tennis world will not be the same.